All right, it's time for our next live, and the topic is a good one with a very knowledgeable person here. Right, as always, as you're coming in and watching, we always like to greet newcomers or the faithful who are watching in the chat. Let us know who you are and where you're watching from, so we can greet you. Um, just reminder, we're streaming across multiple platforms, so you're not going to be able to see another person's comments always, but we can see yours. So if you have questions about how to build these guns, all right, and get strong while staying healthy, which is key, without sacrifice, on a plant-based diet, that is what we're talking about today. Carla, you made it from Chattanooga, Tennessee. That was my old hometown for a while.
I
Awesome.
like Chat. I like Chattanooga. I like that view along the
Oh,
river
it's
there.
beautiful. The
Yeah, yeah,
river. Yeah,
yeah.
man. So my man Daniel, man, it's been a man. Like, where did we first meet?
What was it? The last Asheville
Yeah, they
event,
did last Asheville. Yeah,
the
yeah,
Spring Fest, I think.
that's right, Spring Fest, and we were had tables right next to each other, right?
Yeah.
And I had to check your stuff out because I'm always about how to build muscle, how to get strong while
Hmm.
on a vegan diet, and it seems like you have a lot of knowledge of that, right? Right. That's your
I
thing.
try.
You
I
try, you
try. Yeah.
try.
Always
So
a work in progress.
we got a lot to cover. We got a lot to cover, man. People, if you have questions about how to get strong, build muscle, this is the guy. He's a professional power lifter. You're gonna have to let people know the difference
I
between power lifting.
appreciate that you got the distinction right because people
Yes,
say
that's right. No,
bodybuilder all the
he's a
time, and I
bodybuilder.
was like, hey, you're gonna be disappointed. I'm not that shredded.
There's a difference. There's a
Yeah,
difference.
yeah.
But yeah, you can let people know the difference between powerlifting and bodybuilding. Everyone knows what bodybuilding is. But I think just to let the people know, we're going to talk about yourself, your experience, protein.
Hmm.
How much do I need? Do I need to worry about it? And as an average person today, and then of course workouts. What exercises do we need to focus on if we're getting in the gym and we're looking to build strength? A lot of people are just novices in the gym and they don't know what to do. They're clueless. So you are the man. I appreciate you for giving us this half hour. So let's start off. I should call you Stone Cold Steve Austin. You probably gotten that right.
People thought, yeah, because my name is Daniel Austin, and I'm from Texas also.
You're from Texas. You got
Yeah,
that
well, people thought, Stone Cold is from Austin, Texas,
exactly. Exactly.
and that's not his last name. And granted, Austin is actually my middle name. It's just easier
Okay.
to say than my legal last name.
Okay.
But I did live in Austin, Texas. I mean, I'm from Houston,
Okay.
so that's part of the shtick here. But yeah, people were like, "Oh, are you trying to do the Stone Cold thing, but like vegan?" I'm like, "Well, I don't drink beer. I'm not a
Yeah.
drinker."
Oh yeah, he used to
But
throw it down.
yeah, no. If you want to associate like a vegan with a guy like that, I think that's cool. Because
Yeah.
it's different. Trying to show the variety of vegans we can have in the world.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So yeah, how did you become vegan? Like, what inspired you?
I'm a musician. I come from the punk rock, hardcore scene. Bands in the '90s that were singing about animal rights in their
Okay.
songs.
Yeah.
But my mom was a vegetarian since before I was born, so I would say she exposed me first. But you know, when your parents do something, and granted, my dad was an anti-vegetarian, and my parents didn't
Okay.
stay together very long.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so once there was a custody split, when I go to my dad's, he tried to undo whatever my mom, he'd try to make me, if I didn't want to eat meat, he'd make me eat more yogurt and drink whole milk, and
You gotta get the
and
protein somehow.
and bless his heart, he thought that's what would make me big and strong and
Yeah.
keep me healthy, but it actually gave me sinus infections as a teenager, and I didn't know that it was dairy.
Yeah. Yeah. Me
Because
too.
when I was 15 and I heard these bands, and I started thinking, okay, now this vegetarian thing is cool. I went vegetarian, and I
Hmm.
asked my mom. I said, okay, I'll eat whatever you got. That sounds good to me. Let
Yeah.
me, So it was cool that I had a parent that I lived with most of the time who was very supportive. Then went
Hmm.
to my dad's in the summer or on the weekends. He was trying to undo.
Do the work.
Yeah, he was worried about me, but yeah, no, I was always aware of the ethical side of things. I mean, I did make the decision to be a vegetarian. I thought just because I don't want to pay people to kill animals, like I I grew up fishing with my grandpa and my dad, but I never wanted to hunt. One time my friend shot a bird with a BB gun when we were in middle school, and I cried. I just was really
Wow.
sad because I saw the bird fall.
Yeah.
And I just and then I started to equate, oh, it's messed up to kill a fish too. So I just had I guess I had an affinity for animals and didn't
Mhm.
want to kill them. And I didn't want to pay people to kill them.
Yeah.
So it was, I thought, an ethical decision to become a vegetarian. However, it took me a good 7 years to give up cheese pizza.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was an ethical thing too. When I saw veal calf videos and I saw the mother cows and the baby cows being separated and what would happen to them then,
Yeah.
and the emotional stress that put them in. And I realized, well, that's the same industry. So if I'm trying to do this for an ethical reason, I need to cut out dairy too.
Yeah.
And then I had those happy accidents of my respiratory system functioning, my sinuses clearing up, and my
Mhm.
allergies then became manageable and didn't give me sinus infections 3 or
Mhm.
4 times a year, which is what happened to me when I was a vegetarian. So I was a very sickly vegetarian and
Mhm.
much healthier as a vegan.
Mm.
And back then, I was touring the world in my band, and I would lose my voice all the time because if you can't breathe that well, if you're trying
Mhm.
to project your voice, your vocal cords get a lot more strained if you're getting less
Yeah.
oxygen and such. And I would lose my voice, and I thought maybe I can't do this band thing. But then I went vegan, and it was a
Yeah.
vast improvement.
It's huge. It's
Yeah,
huge.
and then in my mid-20s, I didn't really know about fitness, but I was starting to lose that young person's metabolism and get a
Yeah.
little softer in the middle and
Let's
stuff.
talk
So I'm
in the
like, oh, I
midsection.
need to. When I started working out, I was doing calisthenics, and jogging in the park and stuff. And
Yeah.
but even the dairy at the time made it hard to run long distance because I'd start
Mhm.
hacking up
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
The drainage from my sinuses would cause me to start coughing when I ran a lot. And once I went vegan, I realized, oh, I can run all day.
Yep.
So
Yep. Mhm. So you
uh,
got the ethical reason strong enough, and then you start to see the physical benefits of turning, focusing on the health benefits. And I experienced that big time too myself because it was like milk and cheese was the last thing for me to give up. I used to
mhm.
drink some milk like it was, going out of style. And I was so convinced that, it was the key to getting strong. It's a great protein, right? Cow milk, right? But I'll tell you
And
this, man, I used
funny
to.
enough, it's really not that great.
Right, exactly, right, that's what you're told.
That's
But
what we're
why?
told, but it's really not
Yeah,
that great.
I lived with knee pain, and this is good for anybody. So
Mm,
and a lot of people struggle with arthritis, and I was young. Even my teenage years, my knees would hurt to the point where when I couldn't kneel down and pray because a very religious background. So when I would be praying on my knees, I had to get up and switch knees because it would hurt so much. If I was
mm,
driving in a car long distance, anything more than 2 hours, my knees would be in so much pain. I
wow.
tell you, brother, within weeks of stopping milk, knee pain gone,
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
So you can't tell me there's not correlation.
Right,
So
right.
going into that, a lot of people want to know, okay, so what would you recommend? Well, I guess you didn't get into how you got into becoming a power lifter. Maybe you could tell us that.
Yeah.
And while telling us the difference between bodybuilding and powerlifting. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll start there. Powerlifting is a strength sport. It's not an aesthetic sport, which bodybuilding is judged completely subjectively by judges,
Mhm.
and they're judging your aesthetics, your symmetry, your size, and your definition, and things like that.
Mhm.
So a power lifter doesn't worry about how we look. There's kind of a stereotype that we're fat. Kind of like strongmen. It's like some people, to get stronger, they get as big as they can get. I
Yeah.
compete in a weight class. It's usually about 165 pounds.
Mhm.
Recently I competed in 181. I currently weigh like 176, so I had to compete in the 181. But I'm trying to not be as big as I can be because I'm only 5'7". So if I was 300 pounds, I'd have some major. It would be really bad for me. Just my
Mhm.
joints and such. Some
Mhm.
people aren't made to be that big, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I chose a weight class I could be competitive in, and then my sport is three types of lifts. They're compound lifts. The squat, where the bar is on your back and you squat down to below parallel from your knees and your hips,
Yeah.
and then you stand back up. And all attempts in a sport of powerlifting are a 1 rep max. So you're trying to, you get 3 attempts per competition, but each attempt you try to build up to your ultimate 1 rep max, you know? So then it's the bench press where, you know, you lay on a bench and you press the bar off your chest. And then the last one's the deadlift where you just pick a loaded bar straight up off the ground until lockout.
Yep.
So those are the 3 lifts in powerlifting. And I stumbled into that sport because I got a book in 2010 by another vegan author named Robert Cheek, who put out a book called Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness. And it was about bodybuilding. And I didn't, 2010, I didn't know any vegan athletes. I worked in an animal rights organization, and I had been on tour at a festival doing a booth for this organization. And Robert was working for the protein company Vega.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh, this guy's a bodybuilder. He's the first jacked vegan I ever met, And then, so we got acquainted that day. And then he, like a year later, he put out a book, and I got the book and I started working out. And I think I was about 26, 27 years old then. So I started trying to bodybuild casually, not like in a competitive sense.
Yeah.
But it's a very tedious lifestyle. There's a lot of strict dieting involved, and there's a lot of just repetition.
Yeah.
Of the kind of work you do in the gym.
Yeah.
And a lot of bodybuilders do a lot of sets and a lot of reps, and they work out 5-6 days a week. It's very, very dedicated lifestyle. Yeah. Powerlifting is a little more casual, but you need more time off in between your workouts because you're handling heavier weight. So your central nervous system's got to, recover. Yeah. Like if you deadlift 500 pounds, you probably need at least a week before you deadlift again, or before you do another heavy deadlift, Yeah. So
I got a question.
That does a lot to your spine. You know what I mean? So you have to build in more recovery time in powerlifting. So I, on average, only work out 3 to 4 days a week.
Okay. And obviously, now our viewers, I'm sure a lot of them, or if not all of them, are not interested in being powerlifters. So,
right.
But you have an interesting approach, reading your book and, knowing about you, on why people who promote the plant-based lifestyle should care about building strength and muscle and looking good, right? Looking well, because you typically see that vegan who looks like he's going to blow away with the wind, right?
Right. That vegan is becoming a vegan of the past, I think. But
yeah. A vegan could look fit. A vegan could look good. The caption of the show is like, everybody wants the body of Hercules, right? But not necessarily that you have to, but everyone wants to look good. Everyone wants to feel good and be strong, be at the peak of their strength. And you can get that with a vegan plant-based diet.
And the focus of my book, The Way of the Vegan Meathead, Eating for Strength is a subtitle, is just teaching people how to view balancing their diet based on their goals. So people think it's very hard to get protein on a vegan diet. I find, I on average eat more than 200 grams a day. Wow. And I've done that for over 10 years.
And that's easy.
It's easy for me at this point. It was a little hard to get, to learn the curve.
Yeah.
But once it became my lifestyle, it's very easy, and it's easier than ever because of the kind of vegan selection that's in restaurants and shopping markets now, which is the best selection that we've ever had in history. Right. Yeah. So, but learning as vegan or vegan interested, vegetarian, plant-based people to know how to build a diet based on goals is going to help more of us be healthy, feel good, and stay vegan or vegetarian or plant-based, which
stick with it.
Because most people stop not out of caring for animals or out of concern for their health, but it seems daunting. It seems like they can't quite get the grasp of how to do it on a daily basis and how to feel as good as they did when they were eating more calories on an omnivorous diet, whereas people don't realize how important a balance of fat consumption is, and a balance of, equating the vitamins and minerals that you were getting when you're eating those high calorie foods. Because when you cut out animal products, you're probably losing a lot of fat sources, and that's more than double the calories of carbohydrates and
Yeah.
protein. So most people don't think about equating the calories.
You have to eat more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, not even really, because I mean, one thing I talk about in my book, and a strength diet is a primary example of where higher fat consumption helps.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if you got to say, if you want to get stronger and you need to eat 2,500 or 3,000 calories a day based on your size and the condition you're in, that might be a lot for most people, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I would say, especially women, struggle to hit 1,600 or 2,000 calories, or at least once you make it like real food and not just fast food, it can be harder to get the amount of calories you need to be successful at whatever you're trying to do. But if you build in some healthy fats and you're getting that 9 calories per gram of fat instead of 4 per carbohydrate,
Mhm.
you know, like we were mentioning cheese pizza earlier, and that was a vice for me to stop being vegetarian and go fully vegan.
Yeah.
When I cut out cheese pizza and I no longer had all that fat that's in the cheese,
Yeah.
I did get skinnier when I
Mhm.
went vegan, because
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was eating probably 60% of the calories I used to eat. And I was already skinny teenager to begin with. So my
Yeah.
dad was very worried.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So it took me a while to realize, oh, I need to equate calories,
Okay.
you know, and eating enough fat helps. It also helps with your hormonal balance, you
Yeah.
know,
What are the
male
healthy,
or female.
what like someone wants to make sure they focus on healthy fats. What are the sources of healthy fat?
Well, I really think, I mean, you want less saturated fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did do a lot of coconut oil for years, and I talk about using coconut oil in my book, because when I was skinnier and I was having trouble gaining weight
Okay.
and building muscle, um, you know, I didn't want to cook with oils that degrade under high heat, so I was using coconut oil. But there's a lot more saturated fat
Mm.
in that. And after 10 years of using coconut oil about every day,
Yeah.
my LDL started to go up. Could just be age, because I'm 41 now.
Okay.
But I realized as I get older, I need to cut back on saturated fat. So
Mm.
I would say, as long as you're avoiding, you know, trans fats, we never need,
Yeah.
but saturated fat, which is mainly going to come from coconut oil, and it's going to be less prevalent in other kinds of like nut butters and
Yeah.
nuts and things like that. You know, as the more natural the food is, like if you're
Yeah.
eating nuts or uh, beans, avocados, like the saturated fat is very low.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are much healthier sources, right?
Yeah.
But you really don't have to eat that much peanut butter or almonds or avocado to make up a healthy amount of fat composition in your diet. You know,
Mhm.
if you're trying to perform, whether it's endurance or strength, if you can get about 20% at least of fat per day
Okay.
of your total calories
Mhm.
while hitting your caloric targets,
Yep.
that's usually healthy enough to sustain your sex hormones, which is what gives you energy and the ability to recover and perform
Yeah.
and be aggressive.
What else? Yeah.
You
And
know,
I think
I have known plant-based people who, because they watch Forks Over Knives, and I'm not saying that's a bad film, but it's strictly focused on health, especially for people in crisis.
mhm,
They're
mhm.
trying to manage a
Chronic
crisis
condition.
time in their life when they're facing death, you
Yeah,
know?
chronic
So
conditions.
they advise
Low fat.
10% or less fat,
Yeah.
right? And almost all carbohydrates.
Yeah.
But that's not the same thing as an athletic performance diet,
Yeah.
whereas you
I'm
need
glad you
to
said that.
sustain.
Yeah, I'm
But
glad you said that.
I had friends back in the day who they did like that, and they were just eating strictly plants,
Yeah.
and they were tired.
Mhm.
And one friend in Houston, he went to the doctor and said, "You have the lowest cholesterol of anyone I've ever seen in here." And he was just doing an extreme plant based, kind of avoiding fat altogether, and
Mhm, mhm.
his testosterone was diagnosably low.
Yeah, yeah,
So you have
yeah.
to eat enough fat to sustain sex
Exactly.
hormones for energy, and
I'm
that goes
glad
for testosterone or estrogen.
because everyone, obviously is different in where their goals are, and like you're saying, every eating to your goals. And I think this answers Donovan's question about being eating natural food.
Mhm.
Um, it's unnatural to so low fat from number one is not no fat. That's something we have to understand. But if you're in a state of chronic disease, like if you have diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you're trying to correct almost overcorrect. And that's why in this channel we promote, cooking without oil. But my thing is, if you are healthy, right, you don't have these chronic diseases, then go ahead and cook yourself with use your
Yeah,
coconut oil, use your
yeah,
extra
totally.
virgin olive oil, don't be
Yeah.
so strict on yourself.
And
It, yeah.
I do want to say there's a distinction for me because my
Mhm.
book is called The Way of the Vegan Meathead, Eating for Strength. So I'm talking about eating for strength.
Strength,
And
right?
I say to my audiences every time I speak, eating for strength is not eating for health.
Good point.
So I
Yeah,
eat a higher fat diet,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I get my blood work done. And when I saw that there was not a major problem, because I mean, you're in the medical field, you know the standards by which medical professionals are judging people's cholesterol levels have gotten a
Mhm.
lot more lenient
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it's so common for people to have high cholesterol,
Yeah, it's
But
normal to
for
die of
me,
heart attack. So normal cholesterol.
yeah, a year ago when I go in there and my total is almost 200, which for me as a vegan, that's high.
Yeah.
But they go, "Oh, you have like the best blood work we've seen in here. If you're not at 250, we don't
We don't say nothing.
say anything anymore." I'm like, "Really? It used to be 200, I remember." And they're like, "Yeah, but
Yeah,
welcome to America, things have
exactly.
changed." And I'm just like, "Well, that's not good." So what I did was I dialed back the coconut oil when I realized at 41 years old
It's
I
time to
was getting higher LDL, and I thought, well, that's not good.
yeah.
And then granted, I've been fully vegan for nearly 20 years, but I was eating high saturated fat for strength, and it did help for strength.
Yeah.
And I always say, if you look at the strongest men in the world, not vegan, but they're eating high saturated fat, high protein diets. But
That's
they
what gets
say, we're not doing this for health. We got to eat this way, compete, get out by the time we're 45, or yeah, we're going to die.
yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want to be like that as a vegan. So I said, I'm going to cut out the saturated fat to a degree, not totally. But
Okay.
then my LDL went down, my HDL balance was a lot better,
Yeah. I
and
appreciate
I'm
that.
learning to manage that as I go along. But being that my goal is athleticism and strength, I'm going to permit myself to eat more fat
Yeah. And
because you
like
have
you
to get
said,
enough calories
exactly,
and
it's
such
for a
like that.
time. And we're talking about fat. What about protein now? Like what are your I mean, so I know there's a certain requirement or recommendation for those who are non-athletic, and it's a
Yeah.
lot lower than
Well,
people
lower, it's
think.
very low. Yeah. Yeah. I got this from PCRM, the
Yeah,
Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And I think they got it from like Harvard Medical School. It's a
yeah,
pretty well agreed upon amount of protein that you need for general health, which is 0.36 times your body weight in pounds.
that's it. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Or, let's say if you're obese, maybe your lean body mass in pounds
Mhm.
times 0.36 is all you need to sustain.
Yeah. And
Um,
if you equate that, most people will be surprised that they're very easily hitting their protein needs without even trying
oh,
on
yeah. Yeah.
a
Yeah.
vegan diet, right? On a vegan diet, you do not need to worry about protein if there's one big takeaway message. But I'm like you, Daniel, like I go through periods of time where I'm trying to build muscle and build strength, and I want more protein. So
Right.
um where am I getting my protein if I want
So
to build some more strength and muscle? We talked about fat.
there's
What about
there's different there's different avenues you can take.
yeah.
For me, again, eating for strength, not for health. I say anything is vegan under the sun. So the fake meat stuff. I really like the Morningstar Farms chicken strips because they're about 66% protein per calorie, which is really close to chicken breast, like
Mm.
like murdered chicken breast. Um, so it's one of the closest things you're going to find. I mean, seitan, you
Mhm.
can have, it's usually in the same range, 60-70%, depending on the blend of seitan. Tofu is about 45% calorie, but still that's a lot better than a lot of deli meats and things like that, and hamburgers. And other than the really like expensive lean cuts of meat like tofu, tempeh,
Mhm.
seitan can totally rival or beat in terms of protein per
Mhm.
calorie
Yeah,
uh
yeah,
actual slaughtered animal foods.
yeah.
Um those are my main ones that I rely on. But as an athlete, a strength athlete, you really need that
Better veg.
formula I gave you for 0.36 times your body weight. If you're trying to gain muscle and you're working out at least 3 times a week, hopefully 4. If you're a bodybuilder, you're going to be 5 or 6, or if you're CrossFit, 5 or 6 probably.
Mhm.
Um, you're going to probably need to eat at least your body weight in grams of protein.
Gotcha.
You
Gotcha.
know,
Okay.
but for me, I always try to factor in the fact that as vegans, plant-based people, we're going to be eating more fiber because everything we eat is going to have fiber in it,
Yeah.
aside
Yeah.
from like stuff with sugar, you know.
Especially
But
whole. Yeah.
but the fiber to a point, especially if you're eating a high calorie diet for gains,
Hmm.
if you're eating more calories and then you're eating more fiber, it might cause you to flush a lot more
Of
food
those
out of your
calories.
system, and
Yeah.
that's less time to absorb the amino acids to rebuild your muscles.
So, okay.
So that's another reason why a higher fat diet for strength works, because you're not getting more fiber.
Okay.
Hopefully if you're eating plant-based foods, even some processed plant-based foods, you're still getting most of the time more than enough fiber, you know.
Yeah.
And I had the experience early on when I was trying to build and I didn't know how to balance the macros. I was going to the bathroom 7-8 times a day. I could have been more efficient
Yeah.
in terms of my digestion
Okay.
and not having to eat as much, but still make gains.
Gains. Yeah.
So that's something to consider, because obviously fiber is important for longevity and health,
Yep.
and your digestion and your immunity and the gut biome and all that.
Yeah.
But you can actually eat enough to where it causes you problems, and not only problems like if you're on a date or something, but or at work and you got to punch out and go to the bathroom more than usual, but also problems of bioavailability of proteins.
Protein.
Yeah.
Man, good stuff, man. So you
Yeah.
talked about fat, we talked about protein. It's interesting because we're not going to talk a lot about the advantages, because we could talk all day about the advantages of being plant-based versus animal-based proteins and fats. We talk about that enough on this channel, but it's interesting that, just looking at the standard way of eating in America, your fat intake is going to be 30, 40, sometimes 50% of your diet. Just focusing on plant fats, you're naturally going to crowd out the unhealthy fats and probably be where you're at, like saying between about 20%. You're going to be at
Well,
a healthy.
I'm usually more like 30,
Okay,
but
for you. Yeah.
I'm a power lifter and I take
Yeah,
it very
yeah,
seriously, you know.
we're not all trying to be power lifters,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So, but one thing I'll say is about the extreme. I say about my book, if you can teach someone how to get the highest demands of protein and fat for an extreme kind of athlete, you could teach anyone how to eat less than that.
yeah.
You know, so like my book is like the extreme of how to eat protein and fat as a vegan.
Gotcha.
And you could easily just dial it back. And I give you all the formulas for figuring that out for yourself in the book, because I know not everyone wants to be a power lifter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you can learn a lot from one. So we're going to get to some questions once we're done with the last question I have for you. So get into the workouts. So what workouts are you recommending for people starting off in the gym, one, and then I guess on a follow-up on that, recovery, what do you do to recover in between workouts? Yeah, what you like.
That could be a lot, because it's very conditional.
Okay, yeah.
Like for me, I played sports as a kid. And I had an athletic background. I didn't have any injuries. So when I decided I want to start lifting weights, I could do compound lifts. I could do squats and complex movements with a significant amount of weight. But before I did that, and I think what gave me a good foundation between the time I played sports as a kid and got serious about lifting weights as a late 20s adult was calisthenics, just body weight movements, push-ups,
Yeah.
pull-ups, sit-ups,
Even body weight squats, right? Things like
body weight
that.
squats. Yeah. All that. Now, that's not the most efficient at building a lot of muscle, but
Good
it's
start.
good for mobility.
Mhm.
It's good for proprioception and having a coordination to do a compound movement with a barbell or dumbbells.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's a good place to start out to know, because say if I train somebody or I coach a power lifter, before I bring anybody on, I got to assess if they have any weak spots or muscle imbalances. I mean, can you hit depth on a squat? That's an important thing. If you have some mobility issues, I recommend starting with yoga. I recommend hiring a personal trainer, because it's important to learn the movements correctly and not cause yourself problems that are going to hinder you from continuing to train. So you got to get your foundations
Yes.
set.
Do you recommend watching like YouTube videos on form? Or site?
That can be fine. I don't know. I haven't been on bodybuilding.com, but they used to have an exercise library
Okay.
that would show you every kind of exercise.
Okay.
And
Websites have something like that.
one thing I'll say is if you get into a specific sport, there's going to be nuances about form.
Mhm.
And when I was a certified personal trainer years ago, that's not what I do for a day job anymore, but
Mhm.
I had to learn from, was it NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine, certain kind of form to teach people to squat. It's not the same kind of form I teach a power lifter, right? So
Yeah.
there are nuances to those things, but I think learning how to do all the body weight stuff to proper depth and
Okay.
full range of motion first is great.
First.
You can
Yeah.
work with bands.
Okay. Yes.
But it can be very complicated. And that's why I would say you're going to have to invest in some kind of probably a class, or an instructor or a trainer.
That's good
Yeah,
advice.
if you don't have an athletic background,
Yeah.
because it's really like one thing I used to do. One of my first people I ever trained when I lived in Philadelphia and I was a trainer was one of my first clients was a guy that had herniated discs and he'd just gotten out of physical therapy.
Mhm.
And here I am, like quasi powerlifter, bodybuilder type guy. I wasn't competing back then, but I had him do a lot of plank work and a lot of core strength. He couldn't flex his spine a lot. And we had to really, but within 4 months of doing a lot of core work on stability balls, like I'd
Yeah.
have him squat with a ball rolling on the wall so he could lean back into the ball and
Mhm.
not have to completely support himself. And he could build the range of motion over the weeks,
Yeah.
things like that. It really helped him to where I had him deadlifting in 4 months.
Wow. That's
Light,
awesome.
like light, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
the state he was in before, he couldn't imagine that he was ever going to do that again.
That's
So
good.
a lot of it is core stability. If you got back problems, that's usually core weakness. It means you got to do planks. You got to maybe work with a stability ball. You could do every kind of exercise on stability ball, and you're always working on your core stability,
Okay.
even if it's overhead presses or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that
And those
helps.
stability balls are like those big like medicine balls you see in the gym that people are.
They're not. Yeah, they're real light.
They're very light. Yeah.
Yeah,
They're the air. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's so anyone starting
Some
off.
ideas.
Yeah, calisthenics, or a lot of people don't know what that means. It's basically
Body weight movements.
your
Yeah,
body weight instead of adding weights.
right.
And then you can probably transition after some
Prison
time.
workouts.
Prison workouts, right? Pull up squats, the body weight squats. But then you can move on to compound with weight when you're doing things like squatting or bench pressing with actual weights and doing more than one body part at a time.
Right.
Gets you big. Yeah, I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So we have a few questions. Let's go ahead and go to the questions. Let's see.
Okay.
So Donovan, I guess he likes cheese pizza too. How do you replace cheese pizza if you're vegan?
So look, the vegan cheese lobby is not very happy with me because vegan cheese not a health food. It's mostly starch. It's mostly oil.
Yeah.
It doesn't have protein like animal-based cheese. Doesn't mean you should go eat animal-based cheese. It just means, there are things you could make with nutritional yeast or like nut-based cheeses or dressings that you could put on pizza. Pizza is going to be a little different as a vegan. And for me, the big thing because cheese was my last vice when I was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
The big thing for me was knowing about how the cheese and the milk is made and what happens to the animals. And I said, okay, hard no to cheese and dairy from here on.
Yeah.
And, I don't miss it. I can't imagine. I mean, there are cheese substitutes and I enjoy vegan pizza very much now. It didn't used to be so good.
Yeah.
But I don't know how close it comes to the real thing. I mean, it's been almost 20 years since I've had it. So, I think the ethical commitment to not want to consume products from tortured animals will help you stay committed to fighting that cheese addiction.
Yeah.
A lot of the nut-based cheeses and things that you can get. I think they're perfectly tasty, but I've become accustomed to a new kind of.
No, you don't need it. I love that answer because people have to realize that what you once loved, you can unlove in a sense. You can actually
Yeah.
learn to
There is life after cheese.
you can retrain your
And
taste buds.
it's better. I mean, I feel
And
better,
yeah.
and
But nut based cheeses like cashew cheese is probably a
yeah, yeah,
popular
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Cheese.
Like, I make a vegan macaroni and cheese. I think the recipe I got off this website called VegWeb,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's nutritional yeast.
yeah.
Like, it's
That's
smoky. It's got like paprika and garlic in it, and it's tofu for like the thickness.
mhm.
People are upset. Non-vegan people, like, I take that to holiday dinners. It gets eaten up.
Eat it up.
It's got that bite, and it doesn't. I don't know if it tastes exactly like animal-based cheese, but people love it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Tofu.
that's, I missed macaroni, right? Macaroni and cheese. I ate that a lot as a kid, but
Yeah.
now I make my vegan mac and cheese, and I don't miss the old one at all. So
Yeah, it's important to have something to transition,
yeah.
for I think that there's options out there. You can find a lot of stuff online. Omar, my fellow PA, good evening. He says this is such valuable information. All right.
Glad to help. Glad to help.
Yeah. Tracy has a good question here. What exercises do you recommend to help tone inner thigh? I'm very active. I work out 6 days a week, doing 4 days high
Well,
intensity.
having worked in a gym, the ladies come in, they want to see the adductor machines. I mean, that can help, but you don't want to overdo it.
Okay.
I would say work on all kinds of leg work, your
Mhm.
quads and your hamstrings and your glutes. And it's been proven that barbell squats are the best for overall leg composition,
Mhm.
and the booty.
Yeah.
But as far as the hip, you're going to build that if you're working out your whole leg.
Okay. Don't
And
ice.
then you
Yeah.
could do an adductor exercise as assistance.
Okay.
You could do banded walks, like where you put the bands around your feet, and you do what's called a monster walk, where you go side to side.
I wish you could. I
That'll
wish you
light
could
your
demonstrate.
adductors up.
Yeah.
Things like that can really build leg hypertrophy and the little muscles you're talking about. But we're work on all the muscles in the leg, and then the little ones will grow too.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's good advice. Good advice, man. Then Carla says she's putting an input on cheese. I love cheese, but the vegan cheese, depending on the brand, is great. It's just not a lot of variety. Yeah, there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of
There will be more. Vegan markets are growing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the vegan cheeses are much better than they used to be. I went vegan in 2005.
Mhm.
We didn't really have anything then.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm glad you like some of them. Keep at it. Keep at it.
So, man, yeah, I think I always try to keep things succinct and short. And you have been given such valuable information. I hope we could do this again. All right.
Sure, man.
Let's let the people know how to get your book, my man.
Okay.
So this is The Way of the Vegan Meathead. Can you tell the people where else they could find it besides this QR code?
Yeah, I believe you made the QR code go straight to my direct website.
Yeah.
So you can get it there. It's also an audiobook. The audiobook's available on the website there on the QR code, but it's also on Audible. It's also on Apple Books. It's also on Amazon. Amazon is the main place people buy books. I think 90% of the books sold in the world are on Amazon now. And
Yeah.
I do get direct orders on my website, and that's always appreciated. But I know people love that free shipping they get with their Prime and all that. Or
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
so it's on Amazon too. But I don't begrudge anyone picking wherever they want to go for it.
So you can scan the code. It's right
Yeah.
there, guys. And then pick up your book, The Way of the Vegan Meathead by Daniel Austin, man, also known as Stone Cold Steve Austin. But we'll do this again, my friend. Beloved, I pray above all things you may prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers.